All right, so now that we know how to calculate the HDI, um, it's kind of interesting to look at some numbers. So one of the things we can look at is, well, a lot of countries have HDI which is similar to to their income level, but some countries are kind of outliers. So so these are not the best performing countries. Actually, I'm going to make a separate video that shows the best countries. So what I'm saying is their highest HDI. I didn't show that, so I can show that in another video. But this one is they're best at turning income into human development and also worst. So for their level of income, their HDI is really high or their HDI is really low. Okay, so the highest one is Cuba. Cuba, the HDI rank is 71, but their GNI per capita is 114. So they are way ahead of, so their human development level is way higher than other countries who have similar income to them. That's what I mean here. Okay, way higher. And Georgia, Kyrgyzstan, Armenia, Tonga, all three again are quite a bit higher than their GDP numbers would indicate. So why is Cuba so much higher? Well, and I don't know tons about all the details about each of these countries' systems. Cuba is a lot higher because of the system it has. So its system is concentrated on healthcare, public health, and to some extent education. And so the health status in Cuba is much higher than anyone would expect given the income level. That also could be said is that the income level is sort of depressed because of the economic system it has. So this economic system is quite good for health and not necessarily good for pocketbooks, is one way to kind of look at it. And this was actually quite common for states with a very planned economy. Notice that not all, but many of the former Soviet Union countries also have relatively high HDI compared to their GDP numbers, with a few exceptions. I believe Russia being one of the really, really big exceptions to that. So some of the worst performers. So these countries have relatively high or higher GDP numbers or GNI numbers compared to their HDI ranks. Okay, so the worst offender, Equatorial Guinea. So Equatorial Guinea, a very small country in West Africa, has lots of oil, but the oil is not shared widely at all. And so this country has lots and lots of oil, but it has a low life expectancy and a low education level. And so the GDP number looks pretty high. I believe it's maybe even amongst the high income countries, if not the very top end of the high middle. But it has a very low HDI level. And actually, the other countries on this list as well, Kuwait is pretty amazing with a GNI per capita rank of 5, but an HDI rank of 57. Okay, that means it's the 57th highest in the world, but it has the 5th highest average income. So how does this happen? Well, one of the most common is the countries on the top of this kind of worst performers list usually have oil or other natural resources. And so this allows high income without necessarily having wide development in the society, meaning because that one resource can produce so much income itself. And it also often means that the governments have not invested very heavily in developing the population as well. So that can be a couple of the reasons why you see this. Just going on to look at some more. So why do we see a lot of variation between countries and how they perform? Why aren't they just exactly the same as their GDP numbers would indicate? Well, there's some non-economic factors. So things happen. Countries have specific situations. So for example, Swaziland, although in the newest numbers, I believe the new name for Swaziland is like the Kingdom of Eswatini. And Ukraine, they have similar levels of GDP per capita. In fact, Swaziland's a little higher. They're in this kind of 8,000 to 9,000 per person in the PPP numbers. But life expectancy is way higher in Ukraine compared to Swaziland. Now, some of this might have to do with healthcare systems and endemic diseases and other issues. But part of this was the HIV/AIDS epidemic. And so this is part of the reason life expectancy is much lower in Swaziland. Incidentally, from what I told you earlier, back not so long ago, Swaziland's life expectancy was down in the high 30s because of this epidemic. But the drugs, the pharmaceuticals have really developed a lot for the treatment of HIV/AIDS, and this has majorly increased life expectancy in countries that had big outbreaks of HIV/AIDS. There's also a policy difference. For example, the education side, not the life expectancy side. So we got Argentina and Equatorial Guinea. So in Argentina, they're both around the same level. They're both around 17,000 per person in the PPP numbers. But for Argentina, expected years of schooling is 17.6, which I believe is around the same or higher than the US number. And for Equatorial Guinea, it's only 9.2 years, which is extremely low and is actually way lower than any country anywhere near this this income level. Okay, so policy also is going to matter a lot here. Just to